This episode of Dorking Out is brought to you by
Casper Mattresses. You'll get the best night's sleep of your life on a mattress named after the ghost of a dead kid. And
the letter V. V as in Victor. My wife cheated on me with a guy named Victor. You think I wouldn't find out, Vic? You think this is the opening joke in a podcast, Vic? Well, think again, Vic. Why don't you look outside your bathroom window, Vic? Who's laughing now?
Oh, you psycho.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's Dorking Out with Sonia Mansfield and Christopher Allen Smith.
Welcome to episode 49 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and the stories and culture that we love. That means movies and TV, books and podcasts, and pretty much everywhere and everything else where you find stories that interest you. That means us, because this is our show, and one of these days, surely within the next 4 years, we will rewrite this intro.
You need to rewrite it.
So it doesn't change tense like that. This is the Pirates of the Baywatch edition. With me is my co-host, professional writer and author of The Sonia Show. Writing is implied in authorship. Sonia Mansfield.
We need to change that too. Hey there.
Hello.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith. In this week's episode, we review War Machine starring Brad Pitt. This is Netflix's first big attempt at a blockbuster-style film. How'd they do? Well, we're going to talk about that. In our second segment, we have not one, but two, count them, two movie reviews for you, including Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell, No Tales, and Baywatch. And finally, we end our show with what we're dorking out about this week, including the women-only screening of Wonder Woman and the idea of savor-watching, which is the anti-binge watching.
Where have I heard that before? Where have we heard about that before? I don't know.
I don't know. We've got a lot to talk about, and we want to make this the shortest podcast ever because it is a holiday weekend and we've got plans. So let's get this podcast started.
Netflix, the little company that started out sending DVDs through the mail eons ago, has grown over the last 10 years into probably the second most prestigious, interesting power in television. In comedy, in dramas, in miniseries, they are now the first stop when the best creatives in Hollywood go out to pitch their new shows. With HBO, sorry to say, largely it looks like they're falling to second. They've made a huge splash in kind of sitcoms, a massive splash in stand-up comedy stuff, huge splash and presence in dramas like with House of Cards, some of the shows that they have, House of Cards, Master of None, all the kind of adult-oriented Marvel stable of shows, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Making a Murderer. They are just killing it when it comes to television.
Making a Murderer, killing it. I get it.
They're killing it. Get it? I'm a writer. Anyway, but in the last couple of years, they've been making some serious moves to get into high-end Hollywood film, Hollywood-style film production. They have had that thing with Adam Sandler.
That's not high-end.
Which is not really high-end, but it's kind of like, okay, they're making actual Adam Sandler movies that don't have the biggest budget. But now they're jumping into movies like Brad Pitt's War Machine, which we're going to talk about this week. They have like a $90 million film coming out later this year with Will Smith that a lot of people are hoping to be one of the better action movies of this year. This director, it comes from, that one comes from screenwriter Max Landis, director David Ayers.
He did Suicide
who
Squad.
did Suicide Squad, but he also did Fury. He also did a lot of stuff.
Right.
So this is like a serious action
Right.
movie that could be on the summer schedule. So the question is, and
we should mention, they're going to have a big Martin Scorsese movie too.
That's right, The Irishman, which Martin Scorsese, I believe, has been trying to make for the last 15 years.
Yeah. And he's doing it with De Niro and Pacino and Joe Pesci.
Exactly, De Niro
That's
and Pacino
pretty cool.
together underneath the direction of Martin Scorsese. That could be very fantastic. Anyway, point is, how is their first big movie? You know, they've made, before they made House of Cards, they did have Netflix original shows, but they were kind of like, USA Network level of shows where they were fine, but they were not setting any creative imaginations on fire. Now, is this venture into big Hollywood filmmaking kind of the dregs of what the other big studios wouldn't pay for? Is this actually a new interesting way to go? What does War Machine, which hit Netflix this last Friday and is about Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt plays an army general in this kind of dark satire about a general who's tasked with bringing kind of a rational end to the war in Afghanistan. What does this mean for Netflix? What does this mean for people who love movies and are kind of looking for mid-range dramas, which I could see, 10 years ago, this Brad Pitt movie would have been kind of an September, October prestige release, hoping, to make a big splash with the critics, hoping to maybe get some Oscar word of mouth. Sonia, you watched it yesterday?
I did.
What did you think of Brad Pitt in War Machine? What did you think of Netflix's first massive Hollywood-style movie?
I appreciate the idea of the movie. Like you said, kind of this it's not like a huge blockbuster movie. It's not a franchise movie. It's none of those things. It's like an adult movie. And when I say adult, I don't mean like naughty. I mean like it's made for adults, R-rated, drama that studios just don't make anymore.
Right.
Like everything is franchise building, world building, blah, 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 targeted to like young males or something. So I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I have to say, ultimately, I was kind of bored. And here's the deal. Like, a movie on Netflix has a lot to compete with. They have a lot of awesome things on Netflix. Like, I could be watching any one of their awesome stand-up specials. They have a ton of great shows. I'm super into their documentary series. They've done they had the 13th, and now they've got The Keepers and, all of these things. And I'm like, this movie was really boring. I hate to say it. And the only reason I stayed till the end was because we were going to talk about it on the show.
Homework strikes again.
Yeah, what I wanted was something like Three Kings.
Right.
And that's not what I got. And I can't fault movies for not being like the movie I want it to be. Like, I have to judge it for the movie that it is. But it's based on a book, and it has this really lazy voiceover.
Oh, yeah.
That tells us everything instead of showing us.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I could just be listening to the audiobook.
Right.
Because they weren't showing me anything.
Right.
And Brad Pitt's doing a thing. I texted you and I was like, he's doing a thing.
That's right.
Like, he's doing a thing in this. And I don't know, sometimes it seemed cartoonish to me. I actually really liked his scenes with Meg Tilly, who was playing his wife.
That's right. Yeah. It's nice to see Meg Tilly back in a movie.
Yeah.
She's been gone forever. Younger listeners will probably wonder, who the hell's Meg Tilly? Yeah. She's Jennifer Tilly's sister, and used to be a pretty big. Did she have an Oscar, or did she?
I think she was just nominated for a couple of times, but
only nominated.
I liked his scenes with her a lot, but most of the time I thought he was kind of cartoony. And then they had some really pretty good supporting people like Topher Grace and even Anthony Michael Hall, who I didn't even recognize at first.
I really liked him. Yeah.
But they gave them like nothing to do. Like so underwritten. I was just disappointed.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I was really frustrated with this movie. Frustrated in a lot of different ways. You know, in our kind of charged political climate over the last couple of years, you know, Rolling Stone has always done some out there journalism, and sometimes they really hit and sometimes they really miss. This almost seemed like it was the stereotype of what critics of Rolling Stone journalism think of Rolling Stone journalism.
Right.
You know, because I'm actually a fan of well done voiceover to kind of lend color to scenes and color and to quickly move the audience around a story when, you know, rather than having a bunch of connecting scenes, you can just have a couple of witty, important lines that do a lot of the work of moving people around.
When I said lazy voiceover, I don't mean that I think voiceover is always lazy.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just lazy in this
no,
one.
That's where I agree. Is this one, it was just really, you know, they talk about, oh, well, you can't really bring, a lot of this was just, I had the feeling that the screenwriter had never really talked to people in the military or how people in the military work, especially the professionals at his level of the military, and had definitely never talked to kind of the grunts on the ground, because they all seemed like kind of what a Hollywood screenwriter that had never really stepped foot on an army base stereotypically thinks. You know, they're all dumb. They all don't really care about finding anything out about the Afghans. They're all spouting cliches that you've seen in other movies, and you know, they've surprise, the grunts on the ground get into a bad situation and kind of lose it, and, you know, kill some kids, which is, in a better movie, I think would have had more impact. But this was just like stereotype 101 of all of these segments. But the main thing is, I thought this movie has kind of been couched as a satire of the kind of quagmire and dumb thinking that has gotten us where we are in the war in Afghanistan. But they only really reference, it's kind of like, oh, why, you know, it's the stereotypical, you can't really bring democracy to a country by invading it, which is somewhat true, but it seems like a lot of the critiques of the military mission in Afghanistan from the satirical point of view would have been much better pointed at Afghanistan. And they almost kind of, it weirdly seems to kind of sidestep September 11th and kind of the context, and just make it sound like, oh, war's always dumb. People are always dumb that go to war. They're always deluding and fooling themselves into thinking they can ever accomplish anything. Well, but it's not sharp enough to really accomplish that. And by denying some of the realities of war, like World War I, or World War II, Civil War, you know, by denying some of the, I don't want to say successes of war, but by denying things that war has done and why we do it, they make it sound like war just happens because people are deluded and don't read history books, which is just really lazy, really not sharp. You know, a lot of this was supposed to be kind of funny, and it's just not.
No, it's not funny. And I think when you say it's not sharp, that's exactly the problem.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a big muddled mess of a movie. And it wants to ask these questions about, like, you know, why are we there? You know, do we, you know, kind of the idea that we're maybe like people who kind of make their careers on war.
Right.
It wants to like talk about that, but not really.
Exactly.
It kind of actually throws that question out at the end. Like, here's a whole bunch of questions that we could have answered, but instead
We're
You
gonna
know,
we're gonna have
the
some
que- the
vague writing and pretend like we're pondering
No,
these
so
problems.
it literally says like we could have answered this question, this question, this question, this question, but instead everyone wants to know why he was talking to a journalist from Rolling Stone. And I was like, you could have made a movie that answered all those questions actually.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And the other
that
thing,
would have been a good movie.
actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think the thing that really gets me is whether you're for or against what's going on in Afghanistan at this stage, or should we have ever been there, is this is almost like a weirdly, back in the Vietnam era, a lot of the critiques were, oh, these are just baby killers going over there. A lot of the harshest critics of the Vietnam War, oh, these are just baby killers, and the generals are just bloodthirsty. They just want to, make money for the military industrial complex, and they just love war, blah, 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 completely divorcing from the fact that it's the civilian leadership in Washington that's responsible for every single thing those generals do. And here, it's almost as though they're portraying it as, oh, well, Brad Pitt wants to go there and kick ass and, quote unquote, win the Afghan war, and completely divorcing and kind of shirking off the responsibility of the civilian leadership in Washington, which is responsible for every single thing he's doing. And I just think it's a really kind of weirdly dishonest, it's blaming the people carrying out the orders while not really saying anything at the people that are giving the orders. And, if you're trying to have a real satirical, sharp discussion about why things are not going as we might want them to be going in Afghanistan. Either way, either you're for Afghanistan, you want to go in and defeat the terrorists and win, or you're against what's going on in Afghanistan and you want to get all of our troops out and just leave them to their fate. Neither one of those is answered by what the generals are doing.
Right.
But it's not, it does say everything through the structure of this journalist following them around, but it's kind of like...
And even that's not introduced until halfway through the movie.
Yeah, and then the guy's kind of there in the background.
There's this weird voiceover, and you're like, whose voice is that?
Right. It's to bring it back to the Netflix discussion, I'm really with them in trying this out. And maybe this is just something that they're going to have to suffer through. Kind of, they write the big check, they made the big movie, and here it is. It's almost as though, because, when HBO first started going, their first show was not The Sopranos.
Right.
Their first couple shows were really weird and not that good, and they were a network that had never produced television shows, so it took kind of the corporate machinery and the decision makers a while to figure out how you guide a show through development onto the air in a quality way. And I kind of am getting the feeling that this is just like, there's a reason every studio in town passed on this.
Right.
And I almost wish it was like satirical because of some of the ways it was presented, but it was not. It seemed afraid to kind of really lean into the punches it was throwing.
Yeah, there's no insight here.
Right. There's no insight. So I almost wanted it to be like a fictional country where you could really go nuts with the satire and kind of fictionalize it in a way and really highlight some of the absurdities of the way war is conducted, because there is a lot of fodder there. Or tell the story of Afghanistan, but do it with a little bit more seriousness, a little bit more care, and you can still kind of make these points in, I think it would be probably more depressing and more sad, but I was just, this was a movie that couldn't figure out what it wanted to do, couldn't figure out the tone, and, worst of all, seemed to be by writers that are really not that familiar with war journalism or, true war. They seem to be much more familiar with a bunch of Hollywood war movies and maybe a couple Rolling Stone articles that they read about a guy, that went over.
Right.
to Afghanistan. So yeah, I was.
It was
just,
pretty. It was pretty disappointing. Instead of watching it, I would recommend that people go on Amazon Prime or iTunes and watch Three Kings.
Yeah, that could have been worthwhile something. So to sum up though, Sonia, out of 10, what would you give War Machine?
Like a 4.
4. Wow. All right. I was gonna give it a 4 or 5. That's interesting.
It's totally middle ground.
Right. All right. Yeah, I hear you.
Hey, want more Dorking Out?
Yep.
You can visit our website at dorkingoutshow.com.
You can.
And you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.
On Twitter.
Do you listen to us on iTunes?
Yep.
It's cool.
It's cool.
We won't tell anyone.
Nope.
Please take a few minutes out of your busy day of pretending to work while you watch cat videos to give us a review on iTunes.
Cat videos!
For some reason, iTunes really cares about reviews, and it helps us attract more listeners, and you want us to have more listeners and be popular and cool, don't you?
Yep.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And now, on with the show.
Yeah.
Topic 2, we've got 2 movie reviews for you. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and Baywatch. Let's start with Pirates, which was the #1 movie at the box office this weekend, pillaging more than $62 million. It's the 5th movie in the franchise based on the popular Disneyland ride, starring Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, as well as Javier Bardem, and the return of Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley. Smith, I'm going to let you go first. What did you think?
This is probably going to sound crazy, but I want to set the scene. Is these movies are a lot like the Harry Potter movies for me, in that I enjoy being in the world much more than I actually enjoy the plots of the movie. This one is, I really, like a lot of people, I was very pleasantly surprised by the first Pirates of the Caribbean. It was a movie that people were very cynical about, and I was very cynical about. Now they're getting to the point where they're making theme park rides in the movies.
They're making rides into movies. I'm looking forward to the teacup ride movie.
That's right, exactly. And it was really imaginative, really fun, spooky, weird. It was a great summer movie, the first one. The second 2 were too much of a good thing. They were really packed, really dense. Some ways kind of like the Transformers movies where they're trying to do a million things at once. And I think they kind of left a bad taste in people's mouths. But what's interesting about the second 2 Pirates movies is if you watch the first 3 all together, they're intended as a trilogy, I think. It actually makes much more sense, and they're interesting character arcs. And the world, all the weird imaginative things that they do, like, having somebody get killed and how you can bring them back from the dead, and how the spells and the magic and the curses, pirates' curses works. It's just so rich and interesting and fun. So kind of like the mechanics of how they do things are there. Jack Sparrow, for me, in the first Pirates of the Caribbean, is one of the most delightful, funnest characters to ever come on a Hollywood movie screen. I really enjoy that character. But in the last 2 movies, the fourth one, which almost no one remembers, and
I didn't even see.
This
I didn't
one,
see it.
It's obvious that they're not really trying to do characterizations anymore. They're just saying, Johnny Depp, whatever you want to do as Jack Sparrow and mincing around and drinking and whatever, just do your thing. We don't care. And so he's kind of gotten that thing where almost like where Eddie Murphy got in like Beverly Hills Cop 3, or where Mel Gibson and Danny Glover got in Lethal Weapon 4. It's kind of like, oh, we love these stars. We just love the fact that they're back so they can just chatter and do whatever they want. They can improv all over the sets, and who cares what the story is. And it's really a missed opportunity. This series does have a soft spot in my heart because it's more imaginative in a lot of ways than typical big Hollywood blockbuster, cash-in movies. And what's really frustrating here is Javier Bardem is menacing and creepy as this weird ghost captain. And it does have that weird haunted mansion, ghostly Disney thing. Him and his crew are just, they really truly are creepy. There's several action sequences in this that are really well done, really well executed. There's this one where the ocean opens up and they have a fight on the floor of the ocean while these huge walls of water, while the ocean is parted because of some spell or whatever, which is kind of neither here nor there, but it's like, this is not just two superheroes punching at each other at the end of the movie. This is kind of like this really imaginative, weird Rube Goldberg action sequence that's fun. But man, the characters in this don't really have a lot to do. Javier Bardem is creepy and threatening, and that's all he gets to do. There's a new there's a new character who's the son of Will Turner from the original Orlando Bloom's character. Complete, like, you want to talk about a perfect one on the Freddie Prinze Jr. score. This guy is just totally inert. And
I think you could say the same thing about Orlando Bloom.
Yeah.
When he's not playing Legolas, he's kind of...
I get it. Like, and I'm sorry, there's the new female lead in this must be like a 1 on the Rachel Lee Cook scale, because she is just there's a thing that bad screenwriters kind of do where it says, all right, we're going to have this woman back in the 1600s, and we're going to have her character, but she's different. She's a butt kicker. She's spunky. Guess what she's going to be interested in? Science. So it's like where they ladle on all these character traits to her because they are desperate to show she's not just some kept woman under the thumb of the man back in the 1600s. She's progressive. She's looking forward. But she just turns into these ridiculous stereotypes of, I'm a scientist. Like every third scene, she's telling somebody that she's a scientist. And it's just, it's like the message and the heart is good, but the execution is so fumbly and clumsy that it's just, ugh. I mean, she's not really a character. She's kind of a walking embodiment of studio notes. It's, not good. So all of that.
I agree.
All of that is, this is a movie that I would have liked to work. I have a huge soft spot for this series, but it's just didn't work. But that's a long, rambly way for me to say a lot of things. Sonia Mansfield, they can't all be winners. Sometimes in summer movies, we got to review movies that are not all that great. But what did you think? What did you think?
I have to say, I've only seen the first 2. I didn't even bother with the other ones, but I know that we were going to talk about this one on the show, and I just agree with everything that you said. Exactly the same. That's how I feel.
Really?
I do have to say, like, I'm a little confused at how this one's supposed to connect to the DC universe, right? And I didn't see any like Joker or anything in it. Was there a post-credit sequence? Because I had to run out.
Okay, let me ask you this, Sonia Mansfield, and I want you to be honest with me, and more importantly, I want you to be honest with the listeners of our show. So you say you had to run out early. Did you have to run out before the movie started? Because it sounds to me like you didn't watch one frame.
That's not true. I totally saw it.
Okay.
I agree with you. That's all. Can I just agree with you?
Well, first, that is suspect right there. That's why my spidey sense is tingling.
Maybe your review is just spot on.
Maybe. All right, let me ask you this. What did you think of Michelle Obama's cameo in the bar? Tell me what you thought of that. I know that you voted for Obama. I know that you have a soft spot now that they're out of power. We don't need to get into politics, but as for her cameo as a serving wench in...
Fine.
What did you think about it?
Fine. I didn't see it, all right? I didn't see it. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before we started recording. I didn't see it, okay? I didn't want to pay the like $13 or whatever to see this movie.
You didn't want to see. All right, fine. No, that's good. From my point of view, just so I actually did see the movie, I would give it a 4 or a 5, and I think it's time to hang up Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Disney, you still got Pixar going. You got the Disney Animation Studios going. You got Star Wars. You got Marvel. You got the Muppets. You are covered. I think it's time, for various reasons, to hang up the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, Disney, what he said.
That's right. This is. I guess that's what we have to do. I have to tell you we're watching different movies or different shows than we're actually reviewing, and then I'll just come on here and tell everybody what I actually think, and then you'll just agree with me. You know what? This will be a fantastic show.
Oh,
I don't know how
people are going to be disappointed. Should we move on to the? I'm sorry, but I couldn't sit through 2 of these movies.
All right, so on to Baywatch.
Okay, so Baywatch, unfortunately, was the 98-pound weakling at the box office this weekend. Pirates really kicked sand in its eyes. It made $18 million and got scathing reviews. It got 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie reboot stars Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron, and it's based on the 90s TV show Phenomenon, starring David Hasselhoff and Pamela Anderson, about lifeguards who seem to spend a lot of time solving crimes and not a lot of time saving people from drowning. I never really watched the show, so I'm not going to lie and say that I did. I'm not sorry about that. I suspect you don't need to see the show to understand what's going on in the movie. Smith, did you ever watch the show?
I did not watch the show. It was a huge thing in the 90s, and when we were going to college, it seemed like all of our roommates would always. This was one of the first irony watches,
right?
Of television, where people would watch it in order to laugh at it. I think the Mystery Science Theater influence on culture first really got bubbling when Baywatch, of all shows, I think if you want to look at television shows around the world in the 90s, I think Baywatch is the #1 show, the most syndicated. Oh yeah, no,
it was a huge like worldwide smash.
It is
TV show.
Yeah, it is. I can't even think of what a similar thing would be now.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. 90210 was the same way, by the way.
Exactly.
It was a huge hit. I look forward to that reboot. Smith, what did you think of the movie?
Well, that's the thing about summer. Summer movies is sometimes they want to do kind of cool Dark Knight style action movies or comic book movies where they take what seems like a fluffy, light subject and deal with it in a serious adult way, and you can do some kind of interesting things. But sometimes, studios just really do want to cash in. And, there's a lot of these movies now. Now that 21 Jump Street was such a hit a couple years ago, a lot of the studios are looking to their kind of garbage properties. Back in the 90s, there was the Brady Bunch and Addams Family reboots, which were really fun, and they were executed in a really fun tone. But sometimes if you don't hit that tone just right, that kind of irony, we're just going to make fun of the property, kind of like 21 Jump Street was so successful with, it can be either fun or it could turn into 1998's Lost in Space.
Or Chips, which just came out a couple of weeks ago.
Chips, that's right. Or Chips, which just came out a couple of weeks ago. It was, it can be excruciating. All of that being said, I got to say, I'm kind of baffled with Baywatch,
Because you liked it more than you thought you would?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I could say it like that. I have to admit, I thought starting the movie in 1863 and making us watch the last casualty of the Battle of Gettysburg bleed out and call for his mom, that's kind of a tough hole for kind of a light, frothy summer joke fest to start out in. Now it makes sense, and it explains how The Rock and Zac Efron have to find the amulet of Jefferson Davis later on, but it just seems like, why do you have to go so dark at the beginning of the movie? Now, I will say that I was impressed with Michael Caine playing that soldier, and the de-aging effects were just insane. It was like watching an American Michael Caine right out of Alfie, which is 51 years old at this point. It was just great. And I thought, so that was weird. I thought Kevin Smith as a sportswear model was just obvious miscasting. I don't mean to body shame anybody that, has some extra weight on them. I know I do, but it just seems weird. It's like casting Denise Richardson as a nuclear scientist. It's just, there's only so much suspension of disbelief that a body can take. I thought the use of Humphrey Bogart as the ghost of Jack Kennedy was maybe a little bit in bad taste.
Okay.
But
Smith, I let this go on. It's time for you to be honest.
I'll be honest.
Do you mean to tell me I sat through this movie and you didn't?
I wonder what now that I've kind of gone on like this, I wonder how much further I could have gone on.
I was pretty sure from the
beginning
beginning that you hadn't seen it. I just wanted to see how long I could let you go.
Now you tell me though. You look me in the eye and tell me you would not want to watch that version of Baywatch.
I do, actually. I was like, that would be a good movie. I'm interested.
I would love to see.
I have to say, like, I wasn't really into this version of Baywatch because I just don't think not everything needs like a super dark, gritty reboot.
Right.
And that's what this is. It's totally depressing. It wasn't funny. It was surprisingly dark. It's got like dead kids in it, and they like fight Nazis, and
I was surprised. What did you think of the scene at the abortion clinic?
You didn't see the movie, so you don't know about the scene at the abortion clinic.
Well, yeah, but you did see the movie, right? You obviously saw the movie, so why don't you tell me what you thought of the scene at the abortion clinic? I
totally saw the movie, and there was no scene at the abortion clinic. Don't try to trick me into admitting that I didn't see this movie.
You didn't see this movie any more than I did.
I didn't see this movie either.
Sorry, no, I'm sorry. We try to have certain standards on here. Sometimes guests come through, sometimes they don't come through. Sometimes we're caught up a little short for what we're doing for a segment. And you know what we thought? We thought it'd be fun to review movies that we haven't even seen. And if we're not going to see a movie, maybe it should be Baywatch. So we didn't see it.
Or Chips.
That's right. So
although you did see Pirates.
I did see Pirates. Yes, I did see Pirates. Here's the thing.
You're one up on me. I actually didn't see either of these movies.
That's right. We're always going to be honest with you. We might review movies on this program for our loyal listening audience that we have not seen. But we will always be honest with you and tell you eventually, probably near the end of the segment, that we have not actually seen the movie. So, Sonia Mansfield, what would you give The Rock? I'm sorry, what would you give Baywatch starring The Rock, Zac Efron, Humphrey Bogart as the ghost of JFK's ghost, and who else was it? Oh yeah, the de-aged Michael Caine. What would you give that movie?
Oh, I think it's a 10. This is a really good movie.
All right, yeah, I would also give it a 10.
Yeah. I think people should run right out and see it. They're going to be sorry. They're going to be sorry they didn't see it on the big screen. You really need to see Baywatch in like IMAX 3D. It's really like mwah. Like you don't want to miss it.
It is, but when Humphrey Bogart as the ghost of JFK turns around and shows the back of his head to the audience.
It's really gross.
Close your eyes and avert. I have to say, I was shocked that a movie with the pedigree of Baywatch would be in such bad taste. Especially that the estate of Humphrey Bogart would let that slide, but apparently they did.
So next week we're going to review Wonder Woman, and we're actually going to see the movie.
Probably.
I have my ticket.
Stay tuned. We'll see.
Let's move on.
that brings us to what we are dorking out about this week. We're going to rush through kind of ones. Last week, this section got preempted by us talking about the Star Trek Discovery trailer. But I wanted to include this one, Kevin Costner returning to Westerns in a 10-episode television series called Yellowstone, coming out in summer 2018 from the written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, who wrote
I didn't know that. Okay.
Hell on the High Water, Sicario, and Wind River, which I just saw, and Wind River, I just saw a preview to that, and that looks like a good movie. So I will take anything that Kevin Costner does as a cowboy. Dances with Wolves was one of my favorite movies. Open Range is my favorite cowboy movie of probably the last 15 years.
That's an underappreciated gem, that movie.
Robert Duvall and Kevin Costner as cowboys is just...
That's Annette Bening, too, right?
Annette Bening's in that.
Yeah,
and
right.
It, for my money, I think I might have mentioned this last week. I can't remember if I did. It has one of the best gunfights.
Yeah.
In all of Hollywood history. Like kind of a relatively realistic, but still exciting and engaging gunfight. And with all of the gunfights that have been on film in all of Hollywood history, I know that that's a high bar. But for storytelling purposes, it's just great.
I just feel like it's not cool to like Kevin Costner, but I really like Kevin Costner.
I do too. And it's like, I don't understand. Like,
I know, like, for some reason, like...
What happened?
I don't know. Maybe because of the Dances with Wolves, it beat Goodfellas. And so there's kind of this like snobby, like, Dances with Wolves isn't as good as Goodfellas, that sort of snobby thing. But I like Kevin Costner. I think he's super likable. Yeah. I like him in his movies. I don't see every single one of his movies, but I just really like him.
When's the last
time? I do.
Yeah, no, don't apologize. He is fantastic. When's the last time you saw? And that is one of the things. We saw this earlier this year with Moonlight and La La Land. Is just these, or you've seen, or the '94 we saw it with Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction. Is you get these ridiculous, idiotic.
Like, it has to be either or.
It has to be either or, which is just, it has to be Goodfellas or Dances with Wolves. Hey, you know what? They're both nominated for Best Picture. So that means they're probably both pretty fantastic movies. It's just, it is good. Have you watched Dances with Wolves lately?
No, it's been a while, but I saw it a lot when it was in the theater, actually, because it played at my movie theater. Right. So I do super appreciate it. Think it's a good movie.
I watched it with my son a couple of months ago, and holy smokes, that movie holds up.
Yeah.
Like, it really holds up. So yeah, that is a great movie. So anyway, he's going to be in this 10-hour epic. It's called Yellowstone. Costner stars as John Dutton, who controls the largest contiguous ranch in the United States right on the border of Yellowstone National Park. So anyway, there's that. I am very excited for that. But hold on. You know what? We mentioned this at the beginning. I'm just going to get this out of the road so we can get on to Sonia's topic, because I think it's a very interesting one. The Ringer came out with a written essay on the best way to watch TV, which is to watch it in small bites, to savor it, which is something that we have been saying on this show for pretty much the entire run. So we're going to have a link in the show notes for you to go read that so you can know how right we are. We're not really going to talk about it here because we're right. Anyway, Sonia Mansfield.
Yes.
One of our esteemed favorite listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Ronaldi?
Yep.
Wow, did I get that right? Okay.
You did.
Here's the thing. Is I saw the tweets this last week where he asked for us to talk about this. Yes. And I haven't looked at it since, and I just realized that given how much wonderful feedback Marcus has given us. I should probably have done my homework. But you know me, I'm lazy
Yeah.
and shiftless and don't want to do it. So I'm glad that Marcus.
So yeah, he
picked this one
actually
out.
he mentioned this to us on Twitter that he wanted us to talk about this, and I had actually put it on our show notes already. So great minds, Marcus.
Marcus, this one's for you. This one goes out to our main man, Marcus.
So the internet trolls are losing their minds because Alamo Drafthouse, which is one of my favorite movie chains, is doing a bunch of women-only screenings of Wonder Woman. And some men, not all men, some men are losing their minds about it because, you know, if they do a women-only screening, somehow this makes them feel discriminated against, whatever. But the reason I put it on my list was I love whoever is doing their social media needs a big fat raise because they are just killing it on social media. And I wanted to mention, like, so they're just getting slammed on Facebook by these angry dudes, you know. And one guy said, "Have you ever hosted a men's only screening of any film?" And Alamo Drafthouse responded, "We've never done showings where you had to be a man to get in, but we did show the Entourage movie a few years ago." Which I thought was really funny. And then there's just like stuff where it's like, you know, will there be a male only viewing? And then they respond with "go for it" with a link to their like how to book private events. And
right.
You know, another one like asking if they're going to do a clown only screening of It. And they say, "Thanks, we'll steal that idea." Like, it's really, really funny. And I'm just kind of fascinated by this because I think it's like a really cool, fun thing. And these guys are all mad. And I was like, boy, they're going to be super mad when they go see the movie and realize where Wonder Woman comes from.
Right. That's right.
And I'm wondering, like, would these guys be mad if they decided to do a kid-only showing of, like, the latest Pixar movie?
That's a good question. That is a good question. And it's funny.
Like, does this bother you?
Well,
because you can go see the movie anywhere, including their theater.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me. But I do
it
think,
bothers me.
No, that's the thing. is I understand the thought behind Alamo Drafthouse because of the kind of background of superhero movies and hugely male-dominated superhero movies that we've gotten in this tidal wave of superhero movies in the last 15 years. I get it. And this is also kind of like before the first Spider-Man movie, where there's this gigantic pent-up desire from a certain fan base to finally see their character on screen. And they're just super excited about it. And, you know, I'm saying they and whatever, but, you know, this is one of the Trinity, one of the most popular superheroes in the history of comic books. Or the most famous, biggest superheroes in the history of comic books. And finally, in 2017, a movie's coming out. But no, I'm not, it's no skin off my nose if they have a couple women-only screenings. I do think, and you know, obviously, let me step back. Obviously, one of the problems with the internet now is it's either you're totally 100% with a certain point of view, or you're totally 100% against a certain point of view, and you got to make fun of and light the people on fire and, you know, destroy their, you know, you have to call into question their reputations or call into question their motivations. You have to just get all that. You know, I don't really have a problem with it because, you know, at the end of the day, it's all right. It's a couple of showings of Wonder Woman. It's not a big deal. I do think it is fair to say that if there were some male, you know, if a bunch of guys got together and say, we want a male-only showing of, I don't know, Raging Bull or something, that there would
say Caddyshack.
Or Caddyshack, that's right. You know, there would be some heat. And, you know, one of the stories of progress of the last 40 years is, you know, the feminist largely feminist movements talking about how power is used in this country, talking about how people get promotions or something, and breaking down all these male-only institutions systematically, which is definitely for the good. It's unleashed half of the population in the United States and given them opportunities. And, so the United States, in every measurable way, is better off for that. However, it is that, legitimate movement has all been predicated on you can't have gender-exclusive institutions. You can't have gender exclusive meetings. You can't do this stuff. It's not how, equitable countries conduct themselves. I completely see the ridiculousness of putting that level of thought on a couple of women-only screenings of Wonder Woman. But this idea that, and I'm not talking about the trolls and the real misogynists, but the people saying, hey, I thought we weren't doing this anymore, kind of thing. That question I don't think should be completely laughed out of.
What I think
whatever. But
I'm like wondering, are people, if they did like a women-only screening of Bad Moms, would people care? Like it was like, hey, moms, you deserve a break.
yeah,
Go
that's a
see
good
Bad
question.
Moms.
That's a good question.
And people would be like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Good for those moms. Go to Draft House and get your Chardonnay on and watch Bad Moms. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But because it's a female superhero movie, maybe.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's like a cool thing they're doing to like celebrate Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman comes from, a land that's all women. I think it ties in. It's totally appropriate and it's fun.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I think. I would totally go if they were doing it here in San Francisco, but they're not.
Why aren't they doing it in San Francisco?
They're not. They're doing. I think it's funny. So they announced the one in Austin, and then they get a lot of people who are like, "This is awesome," and it's sold out in like a second. And then they get all this like pushback from people who are like, what about me? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm a man. I want to see Wonder Woman at the ladies only screening, whatever.
Yeah.
So then they're like, they post something where they say like, hey, we've heard like, the complaints and we've added more showings. So now they're doing like more in like New York or something like that, but they're not doing San Francisco.
Right. Yeah. I get it. I one of the things, part of me is thinking, and I think you're 100% right, because this is a comic book movie that, even though it's Wonder Woman, is still geared towards the comic book movie audience in a lot of ways. I think it's one of those things where the movie is still pointing at, young men because they're the comic book audience by and large, but they're hoping to bring in a lot of women. My wife hasn't given two craps about a lot of these comic book movies, but boy, she's serious. We're going to the first showing on Thursday night because she wants to see Wonder Woman.
That's awesome.
She's been excited about it for a year.
Alamo Drafthouse is still getting my money. I'm going with my friend on Saturday.
Yeah, so but the other thing is, sometimes I do think, we've seen this in the examinations of test scores and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes having all male and all female classes sometimes do essentially take the distraction factor out, and both, men and women in classes like that, or boys and girls, I should say, in classes like math classes, do better. So I do think that maybe it is time to have some examination of. I
just think it's a fun thing that they're doing. Well, it is,
I hear you, but let's be honest, Sonia. If there was some male only, if the Alamo Drafthouse promoted some movie as, this is for bros only, this is dudes only, you'd be making fun of it, and you know it. You would be making fun of it.
I will say, like, we could talk about equality.
Yeah.
Legally, women are equal.
Right.
In society, not so much.
That's true.
And I think, this is just a nice little thing. Like, hey, ladies, You know, sorry, you make 73 cents on the dollar for what we earn.
Right.
Here's a screening of Wonder Woman.
That's right. No, that's true.
And it's like, and here's the thing, like, no offense, dudes, but you guys are not the underdogs here. And just because they're giving like women a screening of Wonder Woman,
right?
Which, by the way, they're not giving it to us. Like, we're paying for it still.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
You know, it doesn't mean less for you.
Yeah.
You could still see Wonder Woman wherever you want. Well, you could still see it at the Draft House.
I do hear you. And that's one of the reasons is, you know, one of the reasons I talked about the kind of the ridiculous black and white nature of the internet is, you know, I don't feel passionately about this. I don't think of this as some huge thing on equality. I don't think this is some huge examination or earmark of the way things are going. But I do, you know, when I was a kid,
a lot of the trolls, a lot of the people who are really angry, like they don't want women to go to the movies at all.
And that's one of the reasons I want to say this is I 100% agree with you. Is there is the contingent of misogynists on the internet that are just coming down like a hail of metal on this idea, and they're just trying to burn it to the ground. And obviously, I don't want to line up with them. But if you know, and you know, in a lot of ways, men are not the underdogs of, you know, American society. But, you know, one of the hallmarks of equality is men can do something and women can do something. And it is, you know, I think pretty self-evident that when women do things that are gender exclusive, they're looked at in one way. And when men do meetings like this, not even organizations and, you know, old style patriarchy stuff, but, you know, they're going to have a club or a movie showing or something that's gender exclusive to men. It's those two things are not dealt with in the same way. They're not under the same kind of societal rules. And I agree with you, you know, legally men and women are supposed to be on the same playing field, but society wise, they are definitely not. So I see the logic in, you know, who cares? After a lot of it, it's like, who cares? They're going to see a couple of chicks are going to see Wonder Woman. Big deal, you know. But so I see that, but
a couple of broads, some broads want to go
some
see
broads,
Wonder Woman.
some chicks,
some skirts.
Yeah,
they want to go
right.
see Wonder Woman. So, who cares?
That's right. Well, you know, it's funny.
Let the skirts see Wonder Woman.
It's funny because I tried to do some kind of jokey voice like that, and then I realized that my impression was a little too close to Andrew Dice Clay.
I'm like,
so it's like I better pull this back.
Mine sounds terrible. I got nothing.
So
all my impressions sound just like me.
That's right. So it's like I get it, but what I don't like is it's a reasonable question to ask. All right, if we're going to start doing gender exclusive things, you know, because I think on a lot of college campuses, this question of creating quote unquote safe spaces or whatever has been really pretty toxic and pretty non-progressive in a lot of ways for, you know, free speech and all that. And if that kind of thinking about things starts to come out in society and we start setting up society-wide things with that kind of, only women can do this and only men can do this and only minorities can do that. If we start setting up that kind of thing.
But men can go see Wonder Woman. They could go see her. They could go see the movie.
But they can't have a gender exclusive showing without getting a ration of you-know-what.
Well, like I said, they're not, men are not really repressed or oppressed.
Well, like I don't think it's a question of oppression. I think it's a question of, do we all live under one set of rules? All
right.
But, you know, like I said, I'm fine. I'm cool with it. Gender exclusive showing of Wonder Woman is not even in the mountain range of what I want to die on. So it's kind of like, fine, whatever. Seems a little quirky. Seems a little okay. I'm gonna scratch my head for a second.
I still truly believe that, like, if they did like a woman only Bad Moms, people would be like, who cares?
I agree. No, I agree with you. I do agree with you. So that's kind of, I guess a lot of what I'm saying is my word salad of trying to think my way through this issue. It's kind of like, yeah, it's fine or whatever. But I guess that's the thing is, the other thing is almost like this weird Handmaid's Tale thing is any society that starts breaking things down along gender lines makes me nervous. And I'm not saying that this is in any way something like what's going on in Saudi Arabia or like what's going on Handmaid's Tale. I'm not saying that, but it's like, that's interesting.
Well, wait till you see what I'm wearing when I go to see Wonder Woman. Sonia, how can you even see the movie with a crazy getup on your head?
I didn't know they made Wonder Woman burqas. Look at that! It's like it's got the lasso that swoops all around the fabric. So if you on the back and the front, and wow, you use the front of Wonder Woman.
Sonia, that is a really detailed handmaid's robe you've got there.
This isn't a handmaid's robe. This is my flying nun costume. What are you talking about? So, yeah, I guess that's our way of talking through it.
How'd we do? Is this our shortest show ever?
It might be our shortest show ever. It's the one that's going to end my career one way or another, I'm sure, somehow. I'm sure I said something in there.
Well, then, mission accomplished.
All right. That's right. It only took 49 episodes, and Sonia's destroyed me. So, anyway, is there anything else you would like to say about Wonder Woman and the matriarchy putting their foot down on the back of Ghostbusters hating men everywhere?
Fight the power, ladies.
Fight the powers that be.
And goodbye.
Bye!
The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about The Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.